Israel has been waiting for Iran to hit back after Israel assassinated the head of the Hamas terrorist group during his visit a month ago to Iran's capital. Iran promised revenge. That has now turned out to be a massive missile and drone attack on Saturday by the Hezbollah terrorist army that Iran funds in Lebanon, just north of Israel. Except Israeli intelligence was right onto it. So at 4:45 a.m. on Saturday, half an hour before Hezbollah was due to start firing, Israel sent 100 planes to bomb the missile sites. By the time Hezbollah did get around to firing, it was left with about 200 short-range missiles and rockets and just 20 drones, most of which were shot down. About the only Israeli asset Hezbollah managed to hit was part of a chicken farm. And that's made Hezbollah the butt of jokes throughout the Middle East. Joining me is the country's top writer on foreign affairs, Greg Sheridan of The Australian. Greg, thanks for your time. What does all this tell you?
Well, Andrew, great to be with you. Look, so far, Israel has maintained clear conventional military superiority over Hamas, Hezbollah and Iran and the Houthis in Yemen and the raggle-taggle militias in Syria and Iraq, which are anti-Israeli as well. That's a brilliant performance on Israel's part, but it does put a tremendous stress on the society and on the economy. And I do think that Iran gets away with very little cost. It does all this. You know, the Americans won't exact a cost. They don't enforce sanctions seriously. They don't hit back at the Houthis tying up shipping in the Red Sea. But, you know, the Israeli Defence Force has done very well, and the missile defence program has done very well, although it's a very, very expensive program.
Yeah, I noticed that the American head of the Middle East operations, we talked about this before, maybe with General Jack Keane, was saying, look, I've got 200 targets, Iranian-type targets that we could hit. It's causing all this trouble. And the Biden White House says, no. If they had half the guts and smarts of the Israelis, my goodness. Greg, in contrast to Israel's defence force is ours. Now, I played at the top of the show footage of the crack unit of gender experts our Defence Force sent to a Japanese frigate. Although I should be fair and add that the ADF also sent some musicians. To me, this is an embarrassing woke joke. What am I missing?
No, well, you're absolutely right, Andrew. I mean, the Australian Defence Force under the Albanese government is becoming a joke, just a sick joke. We can't send ships to the Red Sea because we don't have any ships. We've only got 3 modern warships in the entire Australian Navy, and you can only ever send out 1 at a time. There was a big exercise in the South China Sea recently. We couldn't send a ship because we don't have any, so we sent 1 P-8 surveillance aircraft. We can send gender experts. And for goodness sake, I mean, what would Australian gender experts be able to tell the Japanese anyway? The culture of Japan and the culture of Australia is entirely different. So the way they integrate men and women in their military, as if we have anything to teach them. It is just a sick joke. The Albanese government is decaying the Australian Defence Force. General Peter Lay, the former Chief of the Army, has called this out more explicitly than anyone else. The Defence Force of Australia today is substantially weaker than it was when the Albanese government came into office. We've taken a frigate out of service. We haven't done all the kind of modernisations we were going to do. The Ghost Bat, which you and I used to discuss on this program, was going to replace our air fighters. That's why we weren't getting the 4th Squadron of F-35s. And now it turns out the Ghost Bat is just going to be a surveillance aircraft as well. It's not going to have any weapons. The one thing we can do is surveil our enemies. You know, we can teach them gender theory, surveil them and print white papers till the cows come home. What we can't do is combat.
Oh, you're terribly unfair. Greg, you are terribly unfair because I, for one, cannot wait until the 1st Regiment of gender experts is deployed in a war against China. I think they will cause immense devastation. Greg, meanwhile, in the other hot war there is going, Ukraine, which does know about fighting, invaded Russia, believe it or not, around Kursk 3 weeks ago, has now captured more than 1,200 square kilometres of Russian territory, hundreds of Russian prisoners, More than 200,000 Russian civilians have fled and are refugees in Russia. This has totally humiliated Russian President Vladimir Putin, although I've got to say Russian troops in Ukraine's east are themselves slowly advancing there. What is the big play here? How's it going?
Well, it's a very complex and dangerous situation. So the Ukrainians have done brilliantly in the field, again, absolutely brilliantly. They've done something that no one expected them to. And what they're trying to do is show Russia there's an increasing cost for what they're doing and also give themselves a bargaining chip. I think we've got to be getting close to negotiations, no matter what anybody says. On either side, Putin, who is the dictator and deserves nothing, and the aggressor, and Zelensky and the Ukrainians, who are the victims and defending themselves valiantly, even though the West has never given them the equipment and the permission that they need. Nonetheless, I think both sides should be getting to a point where they start to negotiate. And I think Ukraine will have to let Russia keep some of the territory, but Ukraine will have to get real security guarantees. I mean, membership of NATO and so on, because every security guarantee they've had in the past, the Russians have just violated.
Worthless.
Now, with Putin, he's a very, very dangerous person, and we just don't know whether, you know, the internal forces against him will finally say this man is doing enormous damage to Russia, or whether, as with many past wars, Russia will go through defeat after defeat after defeat, but just their superior resources and land mass and so on will see them prevail in the end, or whether, being kind of half mad, Putin will indeed go into some kind of limited nuclear use just to change everything. I mean, this is a very dangerous situation. It's telling that in both the Democrat and Republican national conventions
Greg, I've got to go, but
they virtually didn't discuss it.
Well, I think it's really interesting that for the first time, Russian audiences in TV land in Russia are seeing this war is going terribly. You cannot hide the humiliation of having foreign troops on Russian soil for the first time in since World War II. Greg Sheridan, thank you for your time.